All right, folks, welcome back to Nino's Corner.tv. I am joined with a very special guest, Ali Siada Tan, right? Siada Tan, is that how you say it?
That's it. You got it
I said it
right.
right. All right, good. You were the filmmaker, the documentary maker, producer, director, whatever, of UFOs, Angels, and Gods. It's Think Again Productions, and it's on YouTube. And let me tell you, I watched this last night, and I can watch it again over and over and over because it correlates everything that's basically, you made a correlation between the Bible and what's happening in the world today with the UFO phenomenon, angels, demons, everything. It all comes together. It all mixes well, makes complete sense to me. Your documentary is at thinkagainproductions.com, where people can find it on YouTube. It's an amazing documentary. It kind of relates everything with the Bible. And I don't know where you want to start with this. How do you want to kick this off? I always ask my guests, how do you want to kick off this conversation? Because you're a wealth of information. There's tons to talk about. So how do you even want to start this conversation?
I think a good place to start is the UFOs themselves.
Okay.
Because it's something that people are actually seeing in the world, in important people in government, and people we trust are talking about it, friends, family. I had a UFO sighting close up, which started the whole thing, actually. That's what really took me into the research. I was shocked. I was like, what? This is for real? And so looking into the Bible, someone brought to my attention that, actually in the Bible, there seems to be talk about these vehicles. And there's ancient astronaut theorists like Eric von Daniken. He wrote The Chariots of the Gods. And, Zacharias Sitchin, these guys, this was in the 1990s. And these guys believed that civilizations had been visited in the past, and they talked about it in their writings and in their drawings and all that. And someone brought to my attention that the Bible also had things like this. When I started to look into these passages, I realized, wow, the way the Bible talks about angels is very different than the way that the cultural perspective is. That comes from paintings, men with wings, with bird-like wings, little boys, Cupid-looking creatures. The Bible talks about vehicles. It actually, the word used is translated as chariot into English, but the Hebrew rechev actually means something you ride, a vehicle. The only reason people translate it as chariot is because until the modern age, there was no other vehicle but a chariot.
So they had no point of reference. They had no way to relate to it. So they just put wings on the depictions, right?
Yeah, I think that this was their way of saying they're flying here when it comes to the paintings. They're like, yeah, they get here somehow, let's put wings on them. But in the imagination of the culture, that became the way we think of angels. So in the text, like the prophet Elijah is taken up in a chariot of fire and horses of fire. And there are many, many other instances of these things in the Bible. And I thought, wait a second, that's interesting. And usually people turn these characters in the Bible into aliens. But for me, I was going to respect the text. So I was, okay, wait, so they're not aliens. This is actually how angels come and go. And that made the Bible a lot more real to me, at least. Suddenly the idea that God and his angels could come and, take Israel out of Egypt, give the law, and have all kinds of interactions with the human world, looking into the galaxies, looking through the telescope of Galileo. I was like, wow, this can actually happen. I can see now that this could be very real. So that was the first connection, was that the UFOs, they are not a new thing. They have been documented throughout the ages, and the Bible's perspective on them is that they're actually what we would call angels. Darwin comes, and the new scientific age comes, and we're told, hey, the universe is a big place of gas and stones and rocks and dwarves and exploding galaxies. And we evolved here, and some other people evolved elsewhere, and now they're visiting us. And so the idea of an alien is created for us. But what if really the universe is what the Bible calls the heavens? I mean, that's what the heavens means in the Bible. The heavens, the word heavens, shamayim, means actually in the Bible, has three meanings. It can refer to the sky, where the birds fly. So in English we go, it's talking about the sky, let's put the word sky. but it's the word Shemaim. Then it refers to the area where the sun, the moon, and the stars are located. Sometimes the word Shemaim is referring to that, and we call that universe. And then sometimes it refers to the temple at the heart of time and space where God resides. So suddenly I was like, wow, so the Bible actually does talk about the universe, it talks about the Pleiadians, a constellation, it talks about different constellations, for instance, the book of Amos and the book of Job. And I'm like, wow, the Bible really talks about the universe, and it talks about these vehicles and these beings that come and go. So maybe these are not aliens. Maybe this is the true nature of reality. We are, the earth is ours. These are the hosts of the heavens, and we are the host of the earth. And this is not the universe, this is the heavens. Now, what is it exactly? Well, we don't know, because we don't even know where we are. I mean, where is the universe? We don't have a larger context.
Agreed.
We don't know.
Yeah,
So-
and a lot of people, when we start having this talk, especially my audience, there's a lot of people that are open-minded on it, but there's a lot of people like, oh, this is blasphemy. They can't be talking like this. Aliens are demonic. They're demonic. They're the demons. It's a demonic presence. Abductions are demonic. What do you have to say to those people? I guess we could say, and there's two parts of this question. There's that, and then heaven. You say it's what's galactic, right? It would make sense. It's the universe, because I always wondered, how could there be a war in heaven if heaven is a perfect place? But it makes sense to me if they're talking about it galactically.
Yes. Well, even in the English word, it's heavens. It's plural, because the Hebrew is plural, because in the Bible, the word refers to the sky, to the universe, and to the temple at the heart of time and space. And that's why it's plural in Hebrew, because it refers to three different things: the first heaven, second heaven, third heaven. And so that's why in English it's translated as heavens, plural. The first heaven, the Wright brothers, pierced the secret of how to travel in the first heaven with the aeroplane. Then we got into 1957 with Sputnik. The Russians sent up the first satellite, and that started the space age. So now we were going into the second heaven. And perhaps, there's this idea of going, and when the angels of God come back, so the idea of war, UFOs crashing, or Jesus returning with an armada, and the guys that are here putting up a war with him, suddenly it becomes a lot more real. And I think that if it's going to happen in our time, then God is removing the veil, and we're not suddenly seeing it in a way that no other generation before us could have. Because we need to see it for what it is, because we're living it. I mean, the UFO phenomenon really kicks off in 1947, and prophetically, the way that the prophecies of the Bible are outlined, it seems that the Middle East and Israel and Jerusalem are very central, and that is the time where Israel becomes a country. Jerusalem becomes a part of the Jewish Commonwealth in 1967. So suddenly, we live in the generation where these prophecies could literally occur. And so there's an angelic portion, there's an angelic dimension. Now, as far as your question about abductions and demons and all of that, well,
Are all aliens demonic? Most people say that they're all demonic. They're all of them.
Right.
You're saying that's not true, correct?
Yeah, no, exactly. There's two sides. So first of all, I'm saying they're not aliens, they're angels. And angels are not bird-like creatures, and they're not ghosts. They are in the way that, like the one that rolls the tomb of Jesus and sits on it. Why would the scripture say, and he sat on it? Well, it's emphasizing the fact that it's physical. He sat on the tomb. Angels, slay the army of the Syrians. You could meet one unaware, it says, and you should be hospitable, we're told. So you could be entertaining an angel that comes to your house. So definitely, and nowhere does it say in the Bible that angels just take this shape to visit us. It doesn't say that. That's an assumption we've made. So first of all, we're not in the universe. We're in the heavens and on the earth. This is the host of the heavens. We're the host of the earth. And God is in the midst of his creation, and these guys come and go. And we call them in English angels, but in the Bible they have many different names. Angels just is a function they fulfill, which means messenger. But that's only one of the functions. In the Bible, they're called the sons of God. They're called the gods of the nations. And they're also called the Malakim, which means the ones that bring a message. So in Greek, it's translated as angelus, angels. But that is only one function. So there's this whole armor. Now, what the book of Revelation tells us is that 1/3 have rebelled against God and have an agenda. And they have a leader. We don't know his name. He has different titles. The adversaries, Lucifer. These are his titles. And so he wants to be worshipped as God. And He wants to be the number one principle of the creation, and he saw Adam, I guess, as competition, because God had made Adam to be his image bearer, to rule and judge and bring his instructions to the creation. We don't know how vast this thing is. We don't know what's beyond the universe. We know very little. And so Satan decided to take us out. Now, when I looked into the modern day UFO phenomenon, once I realized this thing is real, I started to see if there was any good research about it. And I discovered that some of the top researchers were Ivy League professors. There was David Jacobs from Temple University, Johnny Mack, head of psychiatry from Harvard, Bud Hopkins, a very prominent artist, and others, J. Allen Hynek, incredible researcher. These guys had looked into it deeply, and there was tons of information that was brought out before the digital age, before all the magic that people can create with their cameras. And so it seemed that the UFO phenomenon focused on this weird thing called abductions. And that was the heart of it, actually. So once I researched it, and I'm kind of giving you the short version here, people can watch the documentary. So I interviewed Dr. Jacobs, who was the foremost researcher of abductions. And so people are saying they're getting abducted and hybrids are being created. And that then brought another part of the Bible to life. If the reality of UFOs brought the chariots or vehicles of the angels to life, the hybrids brought this idea of the giants of old, the Nephilim, to life. Suddenly I was reading the book of Genesis, the sons of God, and had relations with the daughters of men, and they created Nephilim, or giants in English. And this was 1996, 1997. This is when the research started into the Bible. And I was like, so there wasn't a lot of writings about it for me to consult. This was kind of like this revelation that was coming. And I was like, wait, there was hybrids in the past. So all of these Greek stories that talk about the Titans, and then I started to research it, and I realized the Assyrians and Mesopotamians talked about it. There was a lot of oral tradition, like from the island of Malta. Here, I'll tell you a story. Once I was in Persepolis, and I was looking at the way it was built. It was the ancient capital of the Persian Empire. And, my dad has passed away. He was there with me, and he was an architect. And he said, even today it'd be hard for us to erect these pillars. I wonder how they did it. And there was a guy there with his kids, and I could tell from his clothing that he was a villager. And I turned around, jokingly, and I said, "Sir, how do you think this stuff was put up here? How did they build this stuff?" He let go of his kid. He straightened his back. He took my question really seriously. I was like, wow, he's going to give me an answer.
Wow.
And he said, well, according to the ancient cuneiform writings, they were champions that lived among them. And these champions were giants. And they are the ones who taught them how to build this.
Oh,
and I was like, whoa.
Gave you a direct answer like that. I mean,
just like that. Like, I was shocked, especially I was kind of like basically arrogantly joking with him, like,
yes,
this
like,
guy,
I'm not gonna notice. Yeah, boom,
I was like a flippant. So suddenly I'm looking at all of this ancient history, like Gilgamesh, the king of Uruk, whose story we have found now. We found his tomb. They have to go and excavate it, but they have these instruments, electromagnetic instruments. The tomb is exactly where the tale of Gilgamesh says the gods opened the banks of the river Euphrates, and then he was buried under it. I spoke with the guy who's doing the dig. So suddenly all of these stories that had been classified as myth, the way that UFOs are classified as myth and fiction, suddenly this ancient history that was recorded by all of our ancestors, including the Bible, concerning these hybrids, now I could believe it because these researchers who didn't have an agenda and who were talking to these abductees who are very normal people. I mean, doctors, lawyers, police officers, judges, ministers, housewives, janitors. I mean, people that from all walks of life, but people that we trust with great responsibility, suddenly coming out and saying this. I mean, look at Johnny Mack, head of psychiatry at Harvard. He decided he was going to debunk the whole abduction phenomenon. And then suddenly in 1994, he shocks the academic world, publishes a book called Abductions, in which he says it's all real. Wow. And he says these people are normal people. They have no reason to just make up some strange story about their lives. And the way they are telling the story matches the way that people tell stories when they tell the truth. He can analyze that. He's the head of psychiatry at Harvard. So he becomes a researcher from then on. If hybrids exist today among us, and since then, I mean, this was in the mid-1990s, and this is we're in 2022. Now I've done tons of research. I've met abductees. I mean, So I know for sure there's even hybrids that live in the city where I live.
But the hybrids would be part of the demonic agenda, right? That would be part
Right.
of the Luciferian agenda, right?
Right.
Because
Exactly.
they're trying to
Exactly.
mix their genes with God gene, right? I mean, is that the best way to say it?
Yeah, exactly. Because man was made in the image of God, and these guys want to make creatures in their own image. So once I realized that the hybrids of today and old are real, then I had to ask myself, who are these guys? And that's when I realized, the fallen angels. So this angelic world divides in two. Now, the majority of the UFOs that are here that we're seeing are the fallen angels, and they are creating hybrids, and is part of an agenda. It has a plan, a middle, beginning, and
It would
end.
be part of the transhumanism agenda as well, and the transgender, the trans everything would be part of probably an insult some people, but it seems to me like what we're talking about here, that'd be a demonic agenda.
Yeah, I think that's the undertow. Change the nature of reality so that you can reinvent it the way you want it done.
Make it an abomination.
Make it an abomination, and gather the world against the second coming of Christ. That's where it's headed, ultimately. On the way there, you're going to create darkness in the world so that you can redefine reality the way you want it. You're going to present yourself as the saviors of the earth. Eventually, we're told there's a final empire in the Bible prophecy. There are 7 empires. The seventh one is on the horizon, and perhaps the events that we're witnessing and you're documenting are showing us that it's rising. And they're going to have a leader, kind of like Hitler. It's like an occult reality with a leader that represents the dark spirituality. And he then, it says in the Bible that he does lying signs and wonders and make fire come from the sky. So maybe he will make an open UFO connection. He'll say, these guys are talking to me, and they're going to help us transition to a better world. Because
that would be the Antichrist.
That would be the Antichrist. And so the idea of gathering the world against heaven's armies, you'd have to redefine the Lord also as an invading alien in order to fool people. Because why would people go to war against God? It doesn't make sense, right? I mean, not believing, rebelling, fine. But going to war against God is insanity. So unless your perspective has changed, you look at there's a movie called The Day the Earth Stood Still. It was released in 1952, I think. Early on, the UFO phenomenon, when people barely knew anything about it and research had just started officially, openly, already these guys were saying, we know why they're here. Well, it was a seed, an idea being planted in the culture. It was propaganda. And from the beginning, the idea was that they're here to help us and save us, and they're kind of, the pseudo-Messiah. That's what Antichrist means, instead of the Messiah. So this is the agenda, and at the end they're going to do the same thing. We're the good guys, and these guys coming are the bad guys. Yes, hybrids. So they divide into two. The good guys are on the way, but they're also here because they protect us. It's important to understand that the bad guys are cornered. That even though they have a loud voice in this season of history, but ultimately they're cornered. The Lord has already won. A power has been removed, and that's why
you can see it. Everything they're doing right now, even in the deep state, are desperate moves. Yeah, everything's really desperate. It just seems to me they're forced moves.
Right. It's a final attempt to consolidate power, create empire, and try one last time to make a go of it. So we'll see. What happens. Why are we in such a crazy story? It's because of who we are. Another thing that has been, changed is our perception of our own identity. We really are the children of the one who is made in the image of God, and we are in a cosmic story of galactic proportions, and involves God and the world of angels, and the world of fallen angels, and the world of hybrids. And the reason we're in such a crazy story is because of who we actually are, and who we've always been. And so, God has been telling us the story in His Word, and that's why people who publish it and translate the Bible are killed and burned, and the Bible is put in the closet and people try to hide it because it has the information that reveals the true nature of reality. So suddenly, the UFO phenomenon and the reality of modern abductions brought to life for me, the angels, the hybrids, the story of the Bible, and then there was another breakthrough, and that had to do with the gods of the nations. There was another gentleman who's actually John Peel. He's on the documentary. One day I came to see him, and he said to me, I know where the throne of Satan is. And I was like, you know where the throne of Satan is? Where is it? He said, well, he said it's in the city of Pergamum. I'm like, well, how do you know that? He says it says it right here. And he showed me in the book of Revelation, Jesus writes 7 letters to 7 congregations. And we don't think about it that he actually wrote letters, but because they're tucked away in the book of Revelation. And to the church of Pergamum in Asia Minor, what's Turkey today, he points out that the throne of Satan is there, and he says it twice. So I went and started looking into it. This was before the internet, so I had to go to the library, and I was a graduate student at the University of Toronto, so I had access to one of the best libraries in Canada. So I went there and I started to dig in, and I found the writings of an archaeologist, a German engineer. He had dug up this thing in the city of Pergamum, which was the altar of Zeus. And he said in his notes that, if the Christ was actually talking about a real thing, the throne of Satan, this was the closest thing to it. And so I thought, wow, this is interesting. Where did he take it? Well, he took it to Berlin. He got the permission of the Ottoman Empire. He put the pieces on a train. He took it to Berlin. And these occult people, in the early 20th century, leading to the Nazi movement, it was huge in Germany. They petitioned the government to create a museum where they could reassemble the entire altar. Usually in museums, you just put like a pieces of the stuff and the rest is in storage. They're like, no, we need to reassemble the altar.
Oh, wow.
And they got the permission. And even you look at the Museum of Pergamum, I think it's called now the Museum of Berlin, it really looks like a temple. It doesn't look like a museum, And there's the gates of Ishtar there, which are the actual gates of the city of Babylon. The actual gates of the city of Babylon is in that museum, and the altar of Zeus. And this opened the door to the connection between the gods and the fallen angels. And I was like, wow, were the gods real then? Like, I always thought they were just myth. So I had this program that allowed me to search the Bible. I could isolate a word, and I isolated the word gods, and I got close to 1,000 passages that the printer spit out. I had no idea that it was going to be like that. And I went through it and I realized, wow, the Bible talks about these beings as though they are real. It says they're judged. It admonishes them. It tells them to worship God. And so suddenly all of these stories from the ancient world in Mesopotamia, in Egypt, where the codes of civilization were handed down by the gods to the nations, the way that God handed the codes of law to Moses and to Israel. Suddenly I could see, wow, the same way that the story of the Bible handing down knowledge to the Jews and eventually God himself coming among us was real, but so was the writings of these other nations, whether it's, the Hinduism or the laws of Hammurabi, Islam, where did that come from? So all of these other codes, they were also, the fallen angels were passing down into the human world, the matrix of civilization. The very codes that would define reality for people. What is right? What is wrong? Who is God? Where are you going when you die? What are the laws that should govern culture? This is how you unite with me. This is how you should build temples for me. Measurements of temple building was passed down the way that Moses received measurements, or Solomon. So the same way that God spoke through the prophets of Israel, the fallen angels presented themselves as gods.
False religions and basically disinformation back then.
That's it. That's the root of disinformation, even to this day, because we are in this spiritual tale even right now. And so what's really behind the scenes, what's behind the deepest of all the states, is this angelic reality, which has two sides. So God speaks through the Spirit, through his word, through angels, through dreams, or directly in our minds. These guys, they present themselves as gods. They speak through mediums, the channeling of the dead, occult spiritual practices of all kinds. That's how they connect to the world. But what they talk about at the foundation level is seriously big information, like the codes of reality. This is how you have to see reality. We're going to give you a glass that you put on your eyes, and you'll see reality. And that's why in the documentary I started by saying that all the civilizations attribute their genesis to gods. So that was another piece of the puzzle that fell into place. Out of the world of myth, the gods came to reality. Their hybrid offsprings came to reality. And now I could follow the story into the 20th century, and I could see the fallen angels were now rebranding themselves as UFOs, or modern day aliens. And they're preparing to rebrand the second coming of God. And I met other people who were thinking about these things, who believed the same thing. And I thought, okay, how come we're all receiving the same message? Perhaps I should put this in the documentary and let others like yourself consider it. So the world of angels had slowly become, and there's a whole process, become this weird place of magic, where angels are like, feather-like creatures who operate in magic, nothing to do with the universe. And then the scientific age, the age of enlightenment, had brought into our attention this concept of aliens. So people no longer saw the connection. You had aliens on one side, angels on the other, and the fallen angels were this, weird concept.
That's why there's this divide. That's why half my audience says, no, it's demonic. The other half still believes that they're with wings, and I get it.
Yeah. And then the gods were mythology, the hybrids were mythology, the UFOs were a brand new thing, the angels were all there. So everything was distorted in the mind. And once I removed the distortion and looked at it from the Bible's point of view, all of these characters fell into place. So all the nations were given into the hands of the gods or the fallen angels. God chose Israel. And when the Messiah came and the Holy Spirit was given, as the Holy Spirit poured out from Jerusalem into the Roman world, it toppled the age of the gods and brought in the new age that we're in right now, where we talk about only one God. Monotheism was brought in. History moved forward, reality changed, and the code of God's knowledge began to be given as a gift to all the nations. And now through it, we have information that prepares us for the age that we're living in. Yes, the hybrids and all that stuff, that's demonic, but the good guys also use vehicles like you see, in the chariot that took up Elijah. Other passages that talk about these chariots in the Bible are associated with angels. So it's not only the fallen angels that use this stuff, but the good angels too. That's why a battle is possible, because they're at par with each other technologically.
So the hybrids also help with the abductions, correct?
They do, yes.
So I mean, these hybrids are taken from human DNA, mixed with the demonic, whatever, alien DNA.
Yes,
and then they create this hybrid, which is, you look at it and say, well, it's not their fault, they're hybrids. What are they ultimately demonic? They're obviously demonic, right? Hybrids?
Yeah. They're demonic, and they're never to have existed. That's why when you look at it in the Bible, they appear in many places. They're always destroyed. They're destroyed by the flood. They're defeated by Abraham. The children of Israel kill them when they come into the land. Goliath is killed, who's a descendant of the hybrids. Always in the Bible, they're eventually defeated because they were never meant to be part of the creation.
They are distorting God's image. They're distorting God's image.
That's it.
They're abomination.
They're tying the houses of the fallen angels are tying into the bloodlines of the human race.
Wow.
And these are modern day hybrids, but if you now follow the ancient hybrids, that takes us into the houses of rulership, the elites. They go back to, they are the children of ancient hybrids.
So the elites today believe their bloodlines really are the ancient hybrids.
Yes, I think so. That's part of my new research, Goliath Rising, my next documentary.
So where does the Nephilim fit into all this? They're the giants, correct?
Nephilim is just a Hebrew word for hybrids.
That's all it is.
That's all it is.
So when they say the fallen angels came down and took women and mated with women, yes, I always thought these fallen angels were giants. Were they giants? Were some of them giants? Some of them not giants? Because I don't know how that could happen between a giant and a regular human being. Yeah. I don't know how that mix would happen.
Yeah. Well, it seems, first of all, that the children were giants. So we don't know, what the fallen angels are. I think some of the fallen angels have bodies of light, the way that the angels do. They have gamma ray bodies, the bodies that we will have. That's what I think Jesus, when he transfigured on the mountain, he was showing the next model, like the next prototype of the body. Beyond that, I have some abductees giving me these drawings they made of these beings, and they look like they have hands and feet and stuff. They're tall, but they're not like gigantic. So I don't know. I don't have enough information about the fallen angels. Now, the mating, how did that work? Was it actual sex? Was it like, more a scientific way of creating kids? We don't know that either. I think it was like the Bible says, they actually did have relations. Their kids were giants, and that must have not been an easy birth, but they did come out. Yeah.
Yeah. So let me jump to this real quick. We're going to jump forward a little bit. And this is a question I wanted to ask you earlier. I've heard that they're planning a fake alien invasion, okay, in order to bring together in this one world government. That's like their last card they'll play, and they're gonna play it. What's your thoughts on that? And are we living in a time of revelations right now?
These are great questions. Project Bluebeam, I think that's what you're referring to. This idea that well, it definitely, I can see clearly, like the Masons, they have a saying, ad chaos orderum, out of chaos comes order. You create a problem, you present yourself as a solution. Perhaps even the pandemic, it has, things like that. But basically, we're kind of, definitely I can see that there's going to be problems and they're going to present themselves as a solution. Now, is that going to be one of the problems, a fake alien invasion? Well, I don't know for sure. We'll have to see. But perhaps once we get that close to the second coming, maybe the Lord and his angels, they start to appear in orbit. They don't have to fake it. They can just say, look, what's this? And that's when the Antichrist can pull on his connection and say, they're good aliens are with me, and these are bad aliens. The good ones have come to help us, into the next cycle of history. And these guys have come to stop us. And so he, in the minds of people, he can reverse reality, because it says in the Bible that people who don't have a love for the truth will be told a lie. And it says the lie.
You see it now.
You see it now. You see it
plain
now.
as day.
Yeah.
And when watching these people take everything hook, line, and sinkers blows me away.
That's it. So it looks like if you don't have your spiritual radar on, you're susceptible to believing this misinformation. And so these guys are going to have a final misinformation, and that misinformation might just be pointing to the reality of God's angels already here. Like it says that the moon will turn into blood, and people say, well, that's an eclipse of the moon. But what if there's actually bases on the moon? As these guys arrive, they shoot it. Like, what if it's that literal, right? I don't know. I do see, like, for instance, in the documentary, I have a footage of one UFO shooting at another, and the other one's kind of running away.
I saw that.
Yeah. And that footage was criticized, to death when it first came out. It was on a Columbia shuttle. They had cameras on the shuttle, and it was just randomly filming space, and it filmed that. And it was a very famous footage when it came out, and I thought that's interesting. And UFO crashes, like Roswell. Why would UFOs crash? Well, if there's a war in the heavens, then it does make sense why UFOs would crash. It's just that the way we've seen
because you think, they have this advanced technology, they're here to visit, they're just checking out our planet. How would something mess up so bad to where they would crash? Aren't they?
How much pilot error can there be? Right.
But if there is a war, and then that video you showed in your documentary of something shooting at the UFO, that was coming from Earth, right?
Yeah.
So obviously we have weapons here shooting at them.
Right. There was two UFOs. One shoots at the other, and the other.
Oh, the UFOs shot at each other.
Yes, the UFOs shot at each other.
Wow. So there you go. That would be the war in the heavens.
That's it, right? So now we're not used to thinking about the world of angels in this way. Why? Not because we actually know what the world of angels looks like for real, and this information is weird. In the past 2,000 years of, let's say, church history, people haven't really looked into the world of angels in the Bible. It's not a great topic of conversation. And people before us, they just couldn't understand these things. So they kind of, made it into the image of their civilization. It was magical. It was. This is the story. This is a long story, but I'll try to make it as short as possible. Basically, in the Bible, there is, for instance, the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah, and God rains fire, and people think, this happened because God imagined it, and he saw fire come from the sky. But in the Bible, God actually orders his angels to go and destroy Sodom and Gomorrah. When we think of technology, it's just God's creation organized according to an understanding of reality. Like the tree is a technology, it provides air. The donkey the Lord rode was a technology. The ship that he sat on, and he preached out of the Sea of Galilee, that boat was a technology. So if you take the Lord and you put him in the heavens, in the midst of his angels, in technology that is far superior to the ships of Galilee or to the donkey that he rode, people get indignation. How could you do that? Well, I don't know. You're saying he was at the end of Roman whips. He was on the back of a donkey. He was on a little boat in the Sea of Galilee. I'm putting him in something that's far greater than any of that. So it's, God, of course, is beyond these things, but he can choose to be in the midst of his creation.
So he chose to be in his creation because he could do all things anyway. So he entered the universe, he entered the planet Earth because he chose to, because he can do all things. He's outside of space and time, he can do that.
But the angels
I'm just wondering who's running heaven up there when he's down here. I don't know.
The Father. But this is the angels are like us. They are not as like God. They are constricted by the laws of physics. They can't just go like this. And so when Christianity came out of Israel, it entered Greek thought, and Greek thought spiritualized it. It just made everything ghostly. Like there's a ghostly realm. The angels are ghosts. Jesus is a ghost. Everything is non-physical. That was Greek influence. Then in the Middle Ages, there was a division between Christians. Some said, let's study the earth and let's catalog science because this is God's creation and it's one way of actually learning about God. Let's learn about what God has created. Another group of Christians said, no, we shouldn't do that. We should only focus on the soul. And so there was a divide in Christianity. The ones that went in that direction of documenting the world, they kind of laid the foundation of what eventually became science. Then you look at the Age of Enlightenment and people like David Hume, who comes and says, we should only believe in what our eyes can see. And you have atheism and secularism and these ideas that start to come up in the 18th century. The church's reaction is to double down on this unseen realm and say, we don't really care what you guys have to say. We're going to go deeper into this ghostly world that we've inherited from the Greeks and from the Middle Ages. And the angels were cast as magical beings of this ghostly world in the imagination. So come the 20th century, God removes the veil and says, no, guys, look, my Bible documents the coming and going of angels with these chariots, and you're seeing it today, and this is where we're headed. Don't be fooled, because it won't make sense what's going on. And so suddenly it looks like a shock, because we have one view, and now we're seeing something that's totally new, and we're going, how is this possible that this is the reality of the world of angels? Well, first of all, it's important to understand that our understanding of angels was basically made up. Basically, we didn't have an understanding of angels. Now we're looking deeper into the passages and examining the evidence that we're seeing at the time, at the intersection of history where we're living in, which is the time perhaps of the second coming and the war of angels coming to a head, Armageddon, which is a spiritual battle of, the climax of this whole thing. And so we need to understand it. And so God is unveiling things previously hidden to other generations. And the same way the UFO phenomenon unlocked. Hence Revelation. And so the book of Revelation is opening up like never before. It's still very mysterious, but it's opening up. So if the UFO phenomenon unlocked for me many passages in the Bible then told me what this was. They kind of played off each other. And so it all came together like a piece of a puzzle that perfectly fit. And I thought, okay, I need to share this with the world. I think I'm onto something here. And so that's how the documentary was made.
Yeah, it's an incredible documentary. And one thing that you showed on there that I was like, bingo, I saw this as well, that there are old, in Australia, there's cave dwellings, and there was prehistoric depictions of what looks like, and these are millions of years old, of what looks like aliens on the painting on the walls.
Right.
And I saw that one depiction that you have on there, prehistoric depiction of a UFO. So they were seeing these things all the way back since the beginning of time, but time. So
in the Garden of Eden, God speaks in the plural, and it's talking about him and his angels. And that's why Eve trusted Satan, because he's part of the world of these guys. We are of the world of God and angels. All of the creation on earth is, and they have been part of our story from the very beginning. They gave us the codes of civilization. We are living in the worlds that they defined for us. The codes they gave us, including the Bible, defines reality for us to this day. Whether it's the Bhagavad Gita, the Quran, in all of these texts, they came from the two sides of this fence.
Let me ask you something else here. The aliens that they depict, you see them with the big, like ant-looking faces. They have an oval face with big eyes.
Right.
Do they all look like that, or do a lot of them look human? Are they humanoid-looking? Are the humanoid-looking ones angels? Are the ones that look like ants and like insects, are those demonic? Or it doesn't matter. They all.
Well, obviously I don't have the precise, but this is what we know so far. The Bible says that you can entertain an angel's unawares. And we see that in the Bible, the angels look human. So that's, one reality. Now, people say they took that shape to interact with us. The Bible doesn't say that. It just presents them that way. And so they could be looking like us. I mean, we're of the world of God and angels. The ones that you're talking about with the big eyes, I have some great drawings that abductees have given me in the documentary that they have different names in the world of modern ufology. They're insecticides, lizardians, and they are definitely demonic. They're fallen angels. So if you actually want to say a fallen angel, that's one. And they do the mind scans. There's actually a great footage on YouTube where Dr. Johnny Mack from Harvard, he goes to Zimbabwe, where these kids in a private school in Africa are in the courtyard, and they run into the school screaming their heads off. And the teachers are like, "What's going on?" They're like, "There's these creatures just appeared." And then he goes to interview them, and it's real. They have a UFO sighting in that school, and these creatures come. And that's what the kids describe, what you just described. So these guys are the bad guys. Now, are any of the good guys looked at like that? I don't know, but I know for sure that these are the bad guys. And so this is one brand of the fallen angels, one type of the fallen angels. What do the other fallen angels look like? I don't know. I think the top of the line, the leaders of the fallen angels, I think they have bodies of light, like the angels of God. But this is as far as we know. Now, the hybrids, they look like us. They go through a process of making sure they do. That's interesting.
I was going to ask you that. Why do they want to look like us? Is it because they want to corrode the God gene? Is it because they want to deceive?
Yeah, that's a great question. Everyone has been struggling with that question for decades now. So definitely the abduction phenomenon has changed. The recent research is no longer about the creation of hybrids. The recent research is about the infiltration of hybrids among us. They have homes. They live in subdivisions. They live together.
So they're walking among us.
They're walking among us. Abductees, when they're put under neurological control, they're told to help them get social security numbers, driver's licenses. That's a big thing, especially in the States where you need a card. Help them teach them how to drive. So it's about infiltration. Now, why are they infiltrating? That's where we are now in the research.
Well, why mission? Are they infiltrating, and are they soulless?
Are they soulless? How smart are they really? They're telepathic, so they suck out a lot of information out of the abductees. They ask about all aspects of life: what's dance, what's philosophy, what's religion, what's music. They sometimes accompany them to work so that they can see them work. So they're learning to be human. Now, to what end? Are they part of an army? Are they going to infiltrate the culture and change it culturally, politically, whatever? How smart are they? I think, this is my personal opinion, that the dark angels, they have their own agenda. Doesn't mean it's ever going to actually come to pass. Their agenda, I think, is to replace the human race with a race of hybrids, devotees, abductees that like them, that some of the abductees like it, people who worship them and who reject God and say, whatever vision of reality you're giving us, we want that. And slowly kind of get rid of the people that are actually against all of this. I think that is their ultimate goal, is to replace the human race with an entirely new race, with the fallen angels at the helm, with their children and their bloodlines controlling the houses of government and exporting their revolution into the heavens. But God's prophecies tell us that the reality will shape out in a different way. And we see that over and over again, God's word prevails over these designs.
So do they accomplish their goal to an extent? And then when they say the second coming of Jesus, he'll be coming through the clouds, are we essentially talking about a UFO?
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, a huge mothership or something. I mean,
something like that. Something like that. So in the Bible,
people are gonna say, no, it's going to be Jesus in the flesh with the nail prints.
Oh no, that's true. He will be, but he doesn't come riding a white horse. Or he doesn't just appear in a toga out of a dimensional gate that opens with these guys that stand in midair. Because in the Bible, like in Psalm 68, it talks about the vehicles of the angels, or the chariots of God, Rechev Elohim. It says the chariots of God, like in Isaiah 66. I got to read this. It's only one verse, but it really answers your question, I think.
Okay.
So it's worth it. Let me just bring it up. Isaiah. Okay, 66. So Isaiah 66, verse 15. It says, oh, that's 62. Sorry. Okay. Isaiah 66. Okay, here we go. It says, "For behold, the Lord will come in fire, and his chariots like the whirlwind, to render his anger in fury and his rebuke with flames of fire. For by fire will the Lord enter into judgment, by his sword with all flesh." So this idea that God comes with his chariots. Now, what's the Hebrew word here? It's the word Merkava, which is the word it's what Ezekiel saw. Ezekiel saw a vision of this thing. And so it looks like it has a crystal-like expanse. Underneath it, there are 4 angels that command 4 wheels. The wheels are vertical and they're intertwined. Imagine a horizontal wheel and a vertical wheel. That's what Ezekiel is describing.
Okay.
Then next to each one of these, which means they can roll and go in any direction that God commands it. And next to it, there's these creatures that are awesome. They're like, the description is fantastic. And there's 4 of them. And above their heads, they carry an expanse upon which is a throne and where God sits. This is the Merkava. This is the chariot of God. The angels, their chariots in the Bible are called Rekev, not Merkava. It's from the same word, from the same root word, to ride. But they have their ride, and the Bible says, for instance, at Sinai, there was the Rekev Elohim, the chariots of the angels. Then we see that God himself has one, and so he's in the midst of it. His throne is a mobile throne. He can go anywhere he wants, and he's carried. So this is what it's going to look like. And so, yes, it's going to look like what we in our culture would call UFOs. And that's why the bad guys that are here, they can easily turn the Lord into an invading alien force and possibly, get the kings of the earth, like it says in Psalm 2. Why do the kings of the nations rage against God and against his Messiah? Well, they're going to gather when they're deceived, thinking they're defending the world against something, and especially if the Antichrist can call upon the powers that are behind him to come out of the shadows, and he can say, look, the good aliens are with me, trust me. And as you said, people believe it because they don't have a spiritual side to their soul, and so
they're scientific. Science is their religion. That's why they can buy into all this.
It's been prepared for them. A lot of these guys, like you look at like Galileo, Newton, these guys, they were Masons too. I mean, they were brilliant thinkers, but they were Masons too, and there's all kinds of
they
ideas.
don't want to they don't want to accept the concept of God. That's just too out of the question. It's make believe. It's fairy tale.
Yeah,
This brings it down to where people can understand it. Your documentary honestly brings it down to where everyone can understand this.
Good. I'm glad that's what you got out of it. We released it in 2006 and it went viral. Like it became one of the most watched things on Google Video, which was kind of the ancestor of YouTube. I think millions of people have now watched it over the years. I just recently put it back up on YouTube because I had a change of life and I decided that I was going to continue to talk about these things. But for a while, I'd kind of stopped doing this. The UFOs, angels, gods, hybrids, all of these things are connected in the Bible, and they form, the world of angels and fallen angels and their children. And we are of the world of God and angels. And the Bible's historical and prophetic writings tell us where we came from, where we're going, what's going on today, and how it's going to end. And this reality of the UFOs we're seeing around us, where is this all going? It's essentially going to go to the second coming and the battle of Armageddon. That's where it's like a soup. You got the potatoes and the meat and stuff, and it's cooking, and then finally it's a stew.
How far away do you think we are of that? I mean, we're in it right now, I would say.
This is just me. Don't quote me like, people. I'm not making a prediction of any kind. But if you want my educated opinion, I would say that 100% I'm convinced that it's going to occur in the 21st century. I have no doubt that the second coming is going to occur in the 21st century. If someone had to put a gun to my head and spit out some dates, I'd say 2047 or 2067 are 2 dates that I lean towards. Yeah.
That's still kind of a ways off, so it's gonna be a battle until then.
Well, there's a lot of things that have to fall into place.
Right.
There are some great wars prophesied. Then these wars have consequences the world has to digest that allow. I think the rise of Russia and Iran and other countries is prophetic, and it's leading us to one of the prophecies. On my YouTube channel, where people can watch the documentary, I just put up a talk on this prophecy, and I go into detail into what's happening in these countries and why this could happen. And I'm in my head putting that war at 2029.
Wow.
And then that's going to have consequences because God, defeats them. It says, and He will be glorified. So I think the consequences are going to be twofold. On one hand, there's going to be upheavals in those countries. Governments will change. People will come to the Lord. I think it'll be the final, jihadi movement. That will be the end of them. This will be their final jihad. It's the non-Arab-speaking Islamic countries, Turkey, Iran, and huge portions of Russia are Islamic. People don't talk about it, but Chechnya, huge. When I don't know if you remember this, but a few years ago, these guys in France, they killed these cartoonists, Charlie Hebdo. They had printed a picture.
I heard of that, yeah.
And the most protests in support of those guys and against the French government was in the Russian Federation. It was in Grozny. Close to 1 million Muslims came out and marched in favor of the guys, the terrorists, and against the government. So France. So the Russian Federation has a huge Islamic connection. Then there's Iran, Turkey, and all these guys. So there's going to be change in these countries once they're defeated in this war. There's going to be a spiritual revival in that part of the world as they realize, wow, they're going to be God was with Israel, and they're going to have a change of mind. And I think the economy is going to suffer between now till the end of the 2020s. I think the economy is going to become more impoverished. As some people are saying, we're in the super cycle between the two Great Depressions, 1930 and 2030. If this war happens in 2029, I think it'll put us into a period of time where government and big industry are going to be the main employers, and it kind of creates the right atmosphere for totalitarianism. So I think that I see the 2030s as the time of the rise of the Antichrist. We're going to see him on the stage, and it'll be like Hitler. Like it's like a template from the 20th century. There was the Great Depression, then there was the rise of Hitler, and then his rule is going to be for 7 years, and that's how long the World War II lasted. So going kind of to close to the 2039, 2040, this change has happened in the world, and now this guy's come. The 2029 war is digested. The upheavals have happened as a result of it, and this guy comes to power, and then his rule might be from 2040 to 2047. But that's just an idea. And also 1947 is when Israel became a nation. And so that's an important year. You have to count from 1947 as well. So that's the 100th Jubilee. 2047 is the 100th Jubilee. So it's 50 is a Jubilee year in the Bible where inheritance is returned to people.
Aren't we in a Jubilee year in 2022 or 2020, was it?
We are right. Yeah, we are in a Shemitah year right now where, you're not supposed to cultivate the land. It's supposed to be a time of blessing, but also a time of judgment. So we'll see if we get an economic judgment like we had. The Taliban took over Afghanistan, which is kind of when 9/11 happened. There was a guy who wrote a book, The Harbinger, Jonathan Cahn. He said that was a judgment from God calling America back to Himself. But instead of kind of showing humility, America decides to rise and build better and become stronger and goes to Afghanistan. But economic judgment follows. So 2001, 2008, every 7 years. So we are now in the third 7 year, 2001, to 2022. Now we're in the third 7th year from there. So there could be economic judgment. The store in Afghanistan backfired. The Taliban took over 3 days after America left. And so, that didn't work. There could be a terrorist attack in America. So we'll have to see if we're going to get an economic judgment in the fall of this year. But this would be in harmony with the Shemitah year and things that happen. And if we do get an economic judgment in this year, and there's a bust, like there's a massive deflationary bust, a crash, that's where quantitative easing and money printing will have to come in at the bottom even more than before. And that unleashes us into an inflationary cycle with interest rates and inflation rising, slowing the economy down. So by the time we get to 2030, that's when a depression can begin, especially if this war happens in 2029 with these powers that have now risen. And this is all me just making up. Don't believe anything I'm saying.
No,
This is not. This is just me just kind of going off with a bunch of theories.
It's an educated opinion from what you've researched. I mean,
yeah, that's all it is. So don't bank on it or anything.
But it's interesting either way.
Yeah, the documentary, that's a different story. I put a lot of research and prayer, and it's all biblically based and all that stuff. But this is just, just me going, okay.
Well, I got to tell you, Ali, what an amazing interview. Thank you so much for this. My audience is going to love this. And what's the name of the documentary once more?
So the documentary is UFOs, Angels, and Gods. You can watch it on my YouTube channel. If you go to my website, thinkagainproductions.com, you'll see it right there. It's free, but you can come to the bottom of the page and donate if you want. Please do support the work we do. You can sign up for my newsletter by coming to the bottom of the front page. It says stay informed. Put your email in there. If you double click on the documentary, it'll take you to my YouTube page. There's also many other videos you can watch. After you've seen the documentary, you can become, subscribe to the YouTube page and support it and share it with friends and family. And both my Facebook and Twitter handle are the same, at UFOs, Angels, Gods, one word with no end. So follow me there. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, and this was incredible, man. I mean, this brought a lot of it. It kind of made it more believable. I understand it better now. It makes complete sense to me. It put a lot of the pieces of the puzzle together for me. So, I mean, this was just an incredible interview. So thinkagainproductions.com, folks, thinkagainproductions.com. The documentary is called UFOs, Angels, and Gods, and it's on YouTube right now. You can go over there and check it out. And you can donate to his page, thinkagainproductions.com. Ali, thank you so much. Thank you so much. God bless you, sir. Let's keep in contact. I'd love to have you on again.
Anytime. Have a wonderful day. Cheers.
You too. Goodbye.